Okay, this girl's on drugs. Girl's on drugs.
Look at this. Y'all look at my new puppy.
I don't care about no damn dog.
Look.
I don't care about no damn dog. All right, 6.5. Linear inequalities. Now, what is the difference? Now, let me go ahead and tell you right now, 80% of your test, let me write this on the board for those that listen and pay attention and don't start thinking. 80% of your test for 6.1 through 6.5 will come from 6.3 and 6.5. So if I give you 10 questions, 4 is going to come from 6.3, 4 is going to come from 6.5. So you better make sure you know what you're doing in 6.3 and 6.5. Capiche? What's the difference between an inequality and an equality? An equality has what? An equal sign. 2x plus 4 is equal to 6. Minus 4, minus 4. 2x is equal to 2. X is equal to 1. Now, what does that x is equal to 1 mean? What does that mean? Okay, in other words, if I take that x and back substitute, then that means I'll get 2 times 1 plus 4 is equal to 6. 2 plus 4 is equal to 6. 6 is equal to 6. So this is what we call a unique solution. Why is it unique? Somebody tell me what the definition of unique means. Different? Yeah. Different solution. What does unique mean? One of a what?
Kind.
One of a kind. So what other number will work in that equation? No other number will work. That's the difference between an equality and an inequality. An inequality does not have an equal sign. An inequality has an inequality sign, which is these two or these two. Now, before we even start on a inequality, we're going to talk about these 4 signs. These two, depending on your application, is going to get an open circle or parentheses or a dashed line. This is exclusive. Exclusive. Somebody tell me what exclusive means, or exclude.
To not include.
To not include. Like if I have a party and I do not invite this person,
It would be not fun.
that would be excluded. So that means that these two guys, what's the opposite of excluded?
Included.
Included, or I'm going to write exclusive. Exclusive is the actual word you're going to use. And then these two, why are they different? Because they have an equal sign in the inequality. We're going to highlight right there and right there. So that means that you're going to use, whenever you're dealing with these two, you're going to use a closed circle, or brackets, or a solid line. And the opposite of exclude is include, which means that you're going to see the word inclusive. Now we'll get to that in just a minute because I'm going to clear this screen right here and we're going to talk more about how to do the...
Yeah, because you be standing in the way.
I take up half the board, don't I? All right, so let's go ahead and I'm going to erase this screen and we're going to go to the next one. Okay? Now, when you have an inequality, there's several things you need to worry about. One is you will solve inequality. I've done inequality. That's not right. Where's my eraser? When you're dealing with an inequality, the first thing you do is you solve as normal. Solve algebraically as you would any other time. I do want to add something, and we'll add this in red, which means try to make it important. Try to keep the variable positive. Now, the stubborn folks that don't keep the variable positive, they're going to have a problem. That variable don't look right. I don't think I spelled it right. See if I spelled variable right. It don't look right. Okay, try to keep the variable positive. Now, the reason you should be able to do this 90% of the time. I teach keep the variable positive. If you don't want to do that, then you suffer the consequences of getting the problem wrong. Okay? Why do I teach keeping the variable positive? Because if you keep the variable positive, you don't have to worry about two more rules that you have to do to get the final answer. And I don't believe in doing busy work. So I'm not going to take time teaching you those last two steps when you don't have to do them. Okay? After you do that, after you solve it, then you have to write it a certain way. Set builder notation. Versus interval notation. Oh, well, hold on a second. Let me put one. I need to put number 3 in the middle of that. I skipped one. I know, I suck. That's number 4. Number 3 is graph it on a number line. Graph it on a number line. And then number 4, write in set builder notation or interval notation.
Builder?
Builder. Set builder.
Okay, never mind. I see the L's just connected.
Yep. Now, go ahead and just write it like this because we're going to go through 2 or 3 sets of problems and you're going to see what I'm talking about. I do each one of them the same way.
Do you think so much hard as always?
No, they make it hard. the department that teaches those 2 classes, they make it 5 times harder than it is.
So how do people just go straight into 103 after?
They make it through there as well as they can, and then with a D or better, and then they just get through
You
it.
said 103. After
Well, you have to take 101, I think. I think you can take 120. What is it? What was it, a noise?
A ghost or something up in
What did
here.
it sound like?
Like beating under their chair. But louder than that. I don't know.
I think you can take my 120. I'm teaching it next semester. I'm teaching
Yeah,
103
see,
and
that's
120.
That's what I'm supposed to have, but she says I can't take 120 after this class.
If your score on your placement test is high enough, you
I
should
think
be
I
able
just need to
to.
retake my placement
I think you
test.
need to too, because especially if you've had this algebra in here, you should tell your advisor you want to retest.
But I have to sign up for those classes today.
Well, sign up for a math class and change it after you take your placement test. Come see me afterwards on your math. All right, so everybody got this? All right. So here's a problem. 2x plus 4 is greater than or equal to 6. Now that's like one we just did a while ago. Except it was an equal sign. This one is not an equal sign. This one is an inequality.
You hear it?
Oh, that's a 10.
It's crazy. It's going to fall down on me. Final destination.
It's the Russians. Now, let's do this right quick, because this is what y'all will mess up on. In general, students mess this up. What does that mean? That means that we're either going to use a closed circle, depending on what context, or a set of brackets, or a solid line. Okay? So I'm going to take my handy dandy, I'm going to highlight this over here, so you will say to yourself, well, Hubert gave us that a while ago, so he told us to remember it, so that's why he's going to use those things, because of that sign right there. So you're not supposed to ask me after this. Also, the answer will be inclusive or exclusive. Inclusive, Hubert, because that's what was written under those symbols. I'm trying to tell y'all something here, okay? All right, so solve it just like you would any other time. Minus 4, 2x greater than or equal to what? 2. X is greater than or equal to 1. This is not called a solution. In inequalities, this is called a solution set. It's called a solution set. What does that mean? That means that any number above 1 will work in this problem. I could plug in a 1, I could plug in a 2, I could plug in a 6. How can I plug in a 1? Because it's what?
Inclusive.
Inclusive, meaning that I can use 1 when I plug it back in. That's what inclusive means. That means that I can use the number that I've got. 1, I could use 2, I could use 1.5, I could use 101, I could use 7, and we'll get to that in just a minute. Now we've got our answer, I'm going to graph it. Graph it on what? The number line. This is called positive infinity. This arrowhead is called negative infinity. 0, 1, 2, 3, -1, -2, -3. So what are we going to put on that number line? An open circle or a closed circle?
Closed.
A closed circle. And it's going to be at 1. And then I'm going to take out my handy dandy highlighter. And you need to use your highlighter, so your notes will say this. Wait a minute, I told y'all not to bring any stuff to school, right? I told y'all not to bring any equipment or supplies, didn't I?
Yep.
Yep. What numbers are greater than 1? To the left or to the right?
To the right.
To the right. And that includes infinity. Remember that later on. So we just graphed it. Now we're going to write in set builder notation. Now set builder notation is very simple. You don't have to think very much. All you have to do is write a brace, set of braces, write X such that, and then put your answer right here.
So like on the homework, will it get us to do this?
It'll ask you to write in set builder notation or interval notation.
So that's the number line?
It may.
Okay.
It may ask you. I'm doing everything. That way you'll know. Okay, so here's set builder notation. Set builder notation is you add the braces, you add the X such that, and then you just put the answer right there. A big line like that means such that. For all answers of X, such that X will be greater than or equal to 1. That's called set builder notation. Some tests ask for that. Some tests ask for interval notation. Interval notation is what most algebra teachers use, including myself. I don't like set builder notation. Interval notation is you read from left to right. So read from left to right. Where do I hit my function or my solution set? At 1. So I put 1, comma, and what does it end with? Infinity. Infinity always gets a parenthesis. Write that down. Negative and positive infinity always gets a parenthesis. Somebody tell me why. Why does infinity and negative infinity always get a parenthesis? It's easy. Somebody tell me what infinity is.
Never ending.
I'm sorry, what?
Never ending.
Give me the number that tells me infinity. You can't. Only people that think they know it all think they can name infinity. So, everybody got, whenever you're dealing with positive or negative infinity, it always gets a parenthesis. Somebody tell me what 1 gets. What does 1 get? Why? You said bracket. Why? Huh? Why? Why does it get a bracket? Because it's inclusive. That's how you do an inequality. Now, in order to do an inequality section, you have to include what you learned in what section? 6.3. So, in order to do 6.5, you have to be able to do 6 point what? And remember me spending a lot of time on going over all the different kinds of equations? The reason I did that was to piss you off, right?
Yep.
No. The reason I did it was so you wouldn't suck at 6 point what? 5. Okay, who has a question on anything I went over so far? Because we're going to do about 3 or 4 of these. And probably you're going to send some questions because there's a couple of things I haven't covered yet. And I'll cover them when we get to those homework questions that you're going to send in. And if you don't send them in, then that means you've understood it. Question. All right, let's see what they're going to show us. There's your 4 symbols. Actually, that's incorrect because they're going with that philosophy. Bobby has to sit on the left side, and Jody has to sit on the right side. I can rewrite this. 2 is greater than x, or x is less than 2. These signs mean nothing unless you got what beside them? Unless you got the context beside them. Okay? So, calling this less than? No. Because I can say x is greater than what? 2. Or I can say 2 is less than what? X. I don't like the way they do this. That's why I don't do any of this. I just did what? I gave you 4 what? Symbols. And I didn't tell you less than or greater than or anything. So I don't agree with the way they explain this, so we're going to keep on going. We've already talked about that. Open circle. We already talked about open. See, they didn't even go through and tell you they're going to do it probably. Yeah, closed circle. They didn't tell you about brackets. They hadn't told you anything yet. Okay, I disagree with this also. Here is where you have a negative. So what should you do? Negative 6x less than 18. Take this across the river, and it becomes a what? 6x. Take this across the river, and it becomes a negative. Divide by 6. X is greater than what? Negative 3. That's the way I teach it. If you know it another way, you're on your own, because I'm not going to teach you to work with a negative number. I'm going to tell you to change it to a positive. Okay? So let's graph this one. So here's our graph. Here's our number line. That's positive infinity. That's negative infinity. 0, 1, 2, 3. Negative 1, negative 2, negative 3. Somebody tell me what kind of circle we're going to put on this number line. Open. And then get my highlighter. What numbers are greater than negative 3?
Oh yeah, sorry.
Okay.
I need to go home.
You're so mean.
I have a question though. I can't remember what the song might not be this. I thought there was something about when you had the symbols and if you like.
Yeah, you had to turn them around and.
When you had a negative, you did have to switch them.
And I tell you what.
That's what. So that's
keep
just,
it what?
So just.
That's why what? What did you just say?
So we were taught that in high school.
That's what I was wondering. Is that what this is? But
yeah,
you just
but you don't have to do
way?
that.
Okay.
That's with the old teacher that tells you that the X has to be on the left.
Okay.
Yeah, they would tell us to switch the X to the other side.
If you have 2 kids, if you have Jody and Susie, and you take Jody and Susie to the Star Park down there in Star, okay? And you put Jody on the left and Susie on the right of the seesaw. If you go to the Anderson Civic Center, Jody has to sit on the left side and Susie has to sit on the right side, because that's the way you did it down the Star. How smart is that? Jody doesn't have to sit on the left side. It doesn't matter what side Jody sits on. It doesn't matter what side Susie sits on. That old adage that you have to put the variable on the left-hand side, that's one of the things that pisses me off most about teachers teaching that. That is not correct. You can put the X on either side you want, and that's why I want to keep mine what? Positive, because if I keep it positive, I don't have to worry about the rules that you're talking about. So, how do you write X such that X is greater than negative 3? That's set builder notation. All right, let's read from left to right. What do we hit first?
Negative 3.
Thank you. And what do we hit? Infinity. What always goes on infinity?
The parentheses.
And what goes on negative 3?
Bracket.
Nope.
I was about to say that's for inclusive. I thought it was a parenthesis, but it wasn't.
Parentheses goes in open circle.
I just didn't know. Okay.
So this is interval notation, and this is set builder notation. And there's another problem for you to keep in your notes for your homework. These are real simple. If you did good in 6.3, then these are just real simple if you follow my directions. This is where, you remember me saying that 90% of the time you can make the, I'm going to go back here because I'm going to make up a problem here. You remember me saying that 90% of the time you can keep the variable positive? You remember me saying that? 10% of the time you're not going to be able to. Here's an example. 6 is less than, or negative 6 is less than x plus 3, negative x plus 3, less than, equal to 4. I want you to highlight this one because this is where you have to deal with a negative variable. And this is the only time you will see me deal with a negative variable. All right, how do you get rid of adding 3? You take it across the river, negative 3, negative 3. Everybody with me? So that's going to be negative 9, less than or equal to negative x, less than or equal to 1. Now here are the 2 rules that you have to remember. And what's your worst enemy on a test? Starts with a T. I, M, time. And what's the first things that go when you're on a time-restricted test? Your memory. Okay? So the less rules you have to remember, the better. When you divide by a negative, and you have to divide, that's one rule. You got to, because x is not by itself. So I've got to divide, and I'm going to put this in red. I've got to divide by negative 1 all the way through. So that's the number 1 rule. So that's the first rule that you're going to forget on a time-restricted test. The second rule is that when you divide or multiply through by a negative, you have to switch the what? You have to switch the inequalities. And that's the second rule that you're going to forget. And that's your answer. And of course, set builder notation would be parentheses, x such that. That's set builder notation. Let's graph it. That's negative infinity. That's positive infinity. This is 0. This is negative 1. And this is positive 9. What goes on negative 1 and positive 9? Open circle or closed circle? Closed circle. And take my handy dandy highlighter. And what numbers are between negative 1 and 9? All these numbers right here, right? So how do we write that? Read it from left to right. Interval notation, left to right. Where do we start? Negative 1. And where do we go? To 9. And what goes on negative 1 and 9?
A bracket.
Bracket goes here and a bracket goes here. Now you need to put a star beside this one because this represents the only time that you cannot manipulate a negative variable. So you might see one of these on the test. Maybe one, if I even give you that one. All right, let's do another.
Isn't it always a closed circle when it's two of them right now?
No, it could be both open. They could be both open.
That's right.
We're not going to do that one yet. We'll do that one later. Okay, I'm going to write some on the board. I want to give you some. I want to crawl before we walk. What?
That's because I've been having a hard time crawling
No,
today.
you. I want you to do the homework without any help. All right, here we go. I know we probably only got a minute left since it's a Monday, Wednesday, Friday 5-minute class. You ready? Let's go with 2x minus 6 is greater than 3x minus 2. All right, I want you to solve it. I want you to graph it. I want you to write set builder notation and interval notation. And yes, you can keep the variable positive on this one. Oh man, this must be one of those extended vehicle warranty things.
Are they calling?
Yeah, but I like to call them because my truck has got over 400,000 miles on it. And buddy, that shuts them up. If you want to shut up the extended warranty people, just tell them your car has like 600,000 miles on it.
Every time they call and tell me that I qualify for lower APR rates, I always give them like a fake credit card number, and then when they put me on hold to run it,
Hang up.
no, I'll be like, wait a minute, why do y'all keep calling me if I keep giving y'all fake numbers? One guy was like, you know what, I knew you were a whore.
You were what?
I kid you not.
Oh my gosh. That's bad. Florida teacher fired for giving zeros to students who didn't turn in their work.
What? Ridiculous.
I guess I'm going to be fired next.
They ain't do their work. They ain't do their work. What you mean?
They're supposed to give you a trophy.
Trophy?
Everybody gets one, right? Everybody gets a trophy. Everybody gets a grade.
Well, we were in middle school, they couldn't get anything below 60.
Bernie's going to take care of all of us.
Bernie's going to budge.
Everything's free. Make bad decisions, Bernie's going to take care of it. All right, I'm going to take 2x, cross the river. That's a minus 2x. And the 2 goes across the river, becomes positive 2. That's the way I'm teaching it. 90% of the time, I'm going to make a positive variable. You do it your way. Don't cry if you get it wrong on the test. So, x is less than, what's negative 6 plus 2? Negative 4. So, if I want to write that in set builder notation, I just do braces x such that x is less than negative 4. That's set builder notation. Now I'm going to graph it.
Priority
0,
one message coming in
4,
on secured channel.
negative 4. This is negative infinity. And this is positive infinity. What numbers, or what kind of circle is going to go on negative 4? Open circle. And what numbers, let me get my handy dandy highlighter, what numbers are less than negative 4?
The negative. That way.
So, interval notation. Somebody tell me what we read first on the left.
Infinitive.
Negative infinity. Infinitive. Comma, -4. What goes on infinity always?
Parentheses.
Parentheses. What goes on -4?
Parentheses.
Parentheses. So there's interval notation. And this is set builder notation.
Is it not supposed to be?
Now, I want to go through something right quick so y'all can work on homework. And you're going to see this in your homework. When I highlight all these numbers right here, let's say this is -5 right here. Everybody with me?
Mm-hmm.
What's between -4 and -5?
Half.
What's that called? Fractions and what?
The
What's the other word? Starts with a D. Decimals. So when I cover this area, or this area right here, or this area right here, when I cover that in a highlight, that means I'm including fractions and what? Decimals. Okay? So this means real numbers. Real numbers. So your directions will say, find the real numbers. Everybody with me? Or find the real numbers in the solution set, or something like that. Meaning that you're saying, what's different? Well, I'm going to do this same problem, and I'm going to give you different directions. Okay, here we go. Somebody give me the problem. I just forgot it.
2x minus 6
2x minus 6.
less than 3x minus 2.
3x.
I mean greater than. Whew, Jesus.
I give you one job.
I was the only one that answered. You're welcome.
Oh, I should be in gratitude. Do you?
Yeah, because I'm the only one that ever talked.
3x what?
I don't know. Minus 2.
Minus 2. Is that what? But before I start, I want to verify that that was the problem, because she'll set me up for failure. Is that it?
That's what it was.
Okay. And the directions doesn't say real numbers. It says find, and I want you to highlight this because it's going to get you on a test. What is integers? Not real numbers. Real numbers include fractions and decimals. So we're going to highlight this in red. And I never highlight anything in red unless it's important.
It's not there.
Yeah, it is. I have to. It's not going to let me do it. There. Integers. What are integers? If real numbers include fractions and decimals, what do integers include? What? Whole numbers. So out beside that, I want you to put whole numbers only. So we cannot include what? Fractions and decimals. So that means we got to shade differently. So I'm going to do the problem just like I did before. And we get what? X is less than, what was it? -4? Mm-hmm. Okay, so that stays the same. The solution set stays the same. But when I do this, what is so funny? Okay, nobody's going to talk. Okay. I'm going to put 3 dots up here. 3 dots over here. 3 dots means I'm only talking about whole numbers. So I'm going to highlight this in red. Now, what goes 4, a open circle. And I'm going to highlight, I'm going to draw a -5 right here. And I'm going to put a highlight. What did I highlight in a while ago? Yellow. And I'm going to put one here, and then I'm going to highlight that. If there was a -6, I would highlight -6. If there was a -7 on my, I would highlight. You cannot include what's in between the whole numbers. You have to use these big dots. Does everybody understand that? Mm-hmm. Or you highlight the 3 dots right here, or you put 3 dots and highlight it. Okay, so now let's do X such that X is less than -4, and then I'm going to put 3 dots here. You're going to see those 3 dots in the answer somewhere. And then interval notation is going to be -infinity to -4, and then 3 dots are going to be somewhere in the answer. It may be in between, it may be up here, it may be to the right, it'll be somewhere in the answer saying that we're only dealing with what? Whole numbers. And that's basically 6.5. Hold on a second. I think I got, what, 5 more minutes? Somebody tell me. So let's look at the question that they're going to give us, because I want you to see how they do it. Okay, that's not there. Let me pull up one of the homework problems. What? I already did.
It wasn't open on mine.
I opened it at the beginning of class.
It's not open.
Yeah, I just looked at it and it wasn't open.
Let me look again.
I'm refreshing on this. Yeah, it's still on there.
6.5. Today is the 16th, isn't it?
PM. You put PM.
Why does it do that? Sorry. Damn Russians.
I think it was just the operator.
Nobody asked you. You're not supposed to be talking anyway. All right, so now you should be able to pull it up. I'm going to go there and pull it up. Assignment. I want to find one to show you what it looks like, so you won't stop on it just because you hadn't seen it. All right, so I think it's going to be in the middle probably. That's not it. That's not it. There it is. Look at the directions. I want you to write these directions down. Graph the solution set of the inequality where x is a what?
Integer.
Integer. So that means that your only answers are A or what? C. Because integers means what?
Dot.
Dots. There's dots, and here's dots. So that means B, and this one is not it, and this one is not it. Now, the reason I'm making such a big deal out of this is because on your test, well, most of y'all are females, so we only got one male. He's the one that's going to screw it up, all right? Because males do not read what? Directions, all right? Most of the girls in here are going to get it because you're going to read the directions, all right? But me and him, we'd be going over a homework problem, and I'll pick B or C, D, because I didn't read the directions. All right?
So true.
All right. So now you're able to work on 6.5. So what does that mean for Friday?
Questions.
We're going over the test, and we're going over homework questions. So make sure you get all the homework done with this section. Any questions? All right,
When
y'all
is
get out of here
homework-
and have a good day.
When is the homework due that you just opened up?